Justine, I'm so excited to have you here today. Welcome.
Thank you very much. I'm excited to be here too.
So, what really intrigued me about you is that you're an Anusara Yoga teacher, and that is I've heard of Hatha Yoga and Bikram Yoga and all these other forms, but Anusara is a new one for me. What's special about this form?
Well, Anusara Yoga is a form of Hatha Yoga. It was started by an American. It's been running for quite a few decades now, I think probably 30 years. And what's special about it, I suppose, is that we work with alignment, but we also work with an attitude. So we combine attitude and action. Attitude and alignment for action. So by that, I mean, we'll talk about a heart quality or a feeling at the start of the class. We have like a theme for the class, and then try and weave that heart quality through the practice. So sometimes we might be, in the class I taught last night, for example, we took an intention through. So the intention was to connect to body and breath and stay present. And so throughout the class, there were opportunities where I reminded people that to come back to that intention. Sometimes when you're in your practice, you find that you sort of suddenly start to think about something, or a story might pop up about how you're doing it and am I doing it properly and all that sort of chatter. So it's quite a nice way to practice if you have a heart quality, so that's something else that's directing your focus other than the monkey mind.
Oh, yes. I know the monkey mind from meditation. It certainly can be a cheeky little monkey sometimes. But
Sure can.
Justine, how did you find yoga in the first place?
Wow. I was in my 20s and I was living in Bondi, working in theatre actually, and I wanted to do something that was movement based and fitted in with the hours that I had. And I stumbled across an Iyengar yoga studio and fell madly in love with it.
Great. So it's been part of your life for a long time.
It has, and actually, so it was interesting. I started it because I needed movement, but pretty quickly I realized that my monkey mind, which was very loud then, probably just as loud almost now, really benefited from the yoga practice. I hadn't ever learnt any meditation as a teenager, so that was my introduction to meditation as well as asana and working with my breath. And since then, I've tried different forms of yoga, but alignment-based yoga has always been my preference. It's my body works well with that, and I like the care that it has for my joints, for what I'm doing, and it's helped me to overcome some postural habits that I picked up as a child and didn't really need to carry on.
Yes. So we're here on Menopause Natural Solutions. So why are we talking about yoga during menopause? What are some of the key benefits of doing yoga at this time of life?
Well, I think when I went into my menopause, when I was in perimenopause, I had a lot of resistance around the changes that I was experiencing, and I didn't actually know much about. I didn't even know that perimenopause was a thing, actually. So it's ever since I've sort of moved now into post-menopause, it's been a bit of a mission of mine to help more women to realize that a yoga practice can help them to connect with their body for one thing. Your body can feel a bit like it's been taken over by aliens. And some of the women that I've spoken to or worked with feel quite angry with their body, or they feel like it's let them down. They may have a fear of the discomfort and the changes they're experiencing, and they think that that's it now. This is where they're going. And yoga can help you to, through movement, it can help you to build strength, but to also release the fascia. So the fascia of the body, it can help you to move the fascia and release the chemical markers that can build up, which cause inflammation. So, you know, in menopause, a lot of women experience those achy joints. So it's great for using that as a release for the aches and the pains. But it also helps you to build your strength, to build your confidence, and if nothing else, to actually move your body and feel pleasure in movement. And that might not be that you're doing, you know, a sort of strict form of asana. It can be more that you're actually just enjoying the stretches and the reaching out and lengthening the spine and rolling around in different ways than your normal movement. So there's some of the reasons that I have actually started to specialize in teaching yoga for menopause. I also think we live in a world where stress levels are so high, and we've gotten so used to that high level of stress that we often don't even realize that we're stressed. And yoga has many techniques to help you to release stress.
I'm glad you brought that up, because my personal experience with yoga has just been how relaxing it can be and how calm I feel afterwards. So I would, I'm not a yoga instructor, but from my limited experience of yoga, I would definitely say the benefits for me have been more along the mental health line, to release stress, to release anxiety, to lift the mood. Yeah.
For sure. You get that familiarity of working with your breath. So then you can start to use your breath when you're off the mat doing whatever it is. You can come back to your breath when you start to feel anxious. You have that awareness. I mean, that's really what all forms of yoga are doing. It's helping you to build awareness, whether it's awareness of your body or awareness of your breath or awareness of the monkey mind and the stories that you tell yourself. So that all helps that working with the breath helps you to release stress. Then there's the postures that you can do. You can do restorative yoga. Like, there's one of my favorite things to do when I'm feeling really exhausted at the end of the day or any time in the day is to put my legs up the wall. So take my bottom right close to the wall, bring my legs up and lie back and relax. It's a very simple thing to do. So I really like to help women to have like a little tool bag, I suppose, of things that they can do when they're not in a yoga class. I think that that's quite important. I think it's great to be able to come to class and connect with other people, or to work with a teacher one-to-one, but to actually have some things that you can be using wherever you are is vital, because you know it's that's where we're living, isn't it? It's in the stress, it's in the traffic, it's in the house with teenagers or aged parents.
And those techniques, like, there's walls everywhere. If you were on a holiday, as long as you're not camping, if you were staying at an Airbnb or a hotel or somewhere like that, they've got walls. You can do that. And how long would you stay in that position? I'm assuming it's only a couple of minutes.
Oh no. Well, 5 minutes I would say is a good spot to start. I've done it for 15. And I mean, the thing about restorative poses is that if you can hold them longer, if you're in a restorative pose and you have support, so that's what you're using for a restorative. You've got either a wall or a pillow or blanket that's giving you some support in whichever way your body is placed. Then the props, the equipment is doing the work for you, and you can really start to let those muscles release slowly and come back to your breath. And it's also a nice opportunity to practice some breathing techniques, or even drop into a bit of a meditation. You might even have a bit of music on and listen to some music, gentle music, whilst you're doing something like legs up the wall.
Perfect. What I was meaning was more that it was a short time, is in something that most people can fit into their day. You don't need to find an extra couple of hours. That 15 minutes, I think, or 5, 10, 15 minutes, whatever you choose, is actually quite actionable, and you can do it on a regular occurrence if you'd like.
That's exactly right. Yes, I see what you mean. It is. It's something that you could do 5 minutes before, when you're getting ready for bed. If you've been having trouble going to sleep, then lying on your bed with your legs up on the wall for 5 minutes before you actually get yourself underneath the covers. It's a very simple thing to add into your day.
Yeah, and sleep's such a common problem at this stage of life. So it's quite a nice little solution. I like that idea. Legs up the wall, connecting to your breath, relaxing, and just preparing for sleep, turning down that monkey mind.
Yes, yeah, and helping the body to start to settle, feel heavier, let the muscles to start to relax, so that when you actually do climb underneath the blankets, you're already in a quieter space.
Nice. So you mentioned you like helping the joints, like you like doing postures and poses that help support the joints. How, I guess, is this just a different posture, or are you using tools?
So in traditional yoga, we use belts and yoga blocks and sometimes wall straps, things like that. We can also use those bands, the words just
The isometric bands.
yeah, an isometric band. One of the things that I find has been really useful is helping teaching women how to do isometric stretching when they're in their yoga poses. That's not something that they necessarily have an awareness of. So then they get an understanding that they can be in, say, warrior two pose and hugging their feet in towards each other, and they can feel that the muscles are contracting onto the bones. And then if they have an understanding that by doing that, they're building strength in their muscles, but they're also helping bone strength, then they can take that practice, that sort of action into other standing poses. It's not something that you only have to be in one pose to do. Also, it's for some people that I've worked with, they've been beginners. They've only just come to yoga at midlife. So I think it's really important to help them to see that there's variations where they can use their fingers on the blocks to lift the height of the floor. It's not a form of yoga that I teach where we don't use any equipment. That can be a bit limiting for some people, I think, especially if they are feeling tight in their joints or they're nursing an injury. I think that when you're in perimenopause and menopause, you're more susceptible to joint injury. So you want to be really working carefully with the body. That's why I like using an alignment-based practice.
So you said that, alignment-based practice. I didn't hear the alignment part.
Yeah,
But you
sorry.
mentioned bone strength. And I know that pretty much any exercise you do, apart from swimming, helps with bone strength. But it's interesting that I don't really put yoga in that category, but I guess it is because you are using body weight.
Yes. So I suppose we always think of it needs to be like load bearing, as in weights, and you can add weights. You can do, you could be holding 2 cans of beans or those little dumbbells in your hands and doing some yoga poses whilst you're doing that. I have taught that to people, but by actually using that isometric contraction of the muscles, you're placing bone under positive stress. And so when you place bone under positive stress, that's when you're encouraging the creation of new bone cells. And that's the way that you're actually maintaining your bone strength.
And it sounds more gentle on your poor little cartilage and ligaments and fascia. That's a very nice way to do it.
It is a nice way to do it. I think also the other thing that we're doing in yoga, and this would be in lots of low impact exercise, is we're encouraging the production of synovial fluid in the joints. And as you would know, during menopause, that just naturally declines. So you want to keep that happening. And that's also why I don't encourage people that I work with one-to-one, if they're sort of thinking of what other exercise could they begin, I don't suggest that they start a high intensity training program unless it's, you know, it's been in their repertoire already. I think that that's possibly not a good idea for joint care at that stage in life.
Yes, that's a common problem. Women decide, right, it's my turn, I'm looking after me, go in too gung-ho and end off worse than they started off. So I like that yoga's a nicer, gentler way to get started, because I can't encourage women to exercise enough, but it doesn't need to be the CrossFit, the HIIT. It can be walking, swimming, yoga. These are still really beautiful exercises, especially at this stage of life.
Definitely. And I think that in the research that has been done on the brain during menopause and the changes to a woman's brain and the way it recovers or reverts after menopause, that work shows that things like brisk walking are really helpful for the brain. But I think also that there's room in there for yoga, because you're layering different poses into. So when you're doing an asana practice, you're using different parts of the body differently to the way you normally would use them. So you're challenging the brain, not just by loading in new bits of information and moving in different directions, but then you can sort of go, okay, now I'm going to take my arms out and I'm going to lift one leg up. I'm going to work on my balance, and then I'm going to turn my head. So you're giving the brain signals to sort of work in an unusual way. And I think that that's really important for our brain health as we age.
Oh, balance is so key. You really want to do anything you can to improve your balance. That's a very key point.
Yeah, for sure. And I work with older women as well, who, you know, some of the ladies I work with are in their 80s, and
So it's never too late to start.
never too late to start. And also the wonderful thing about it is that they can feel, they come to class. Like the first time one lady came, she'd never done any yoga. She was already 80. She's been coming for a couple of years now, and the difference for her is in her confidence, because she feels like her sense of balance, I mean, it's not a perfect sense of balance, but it's way improved from where she was when she first came into the room. I think that's fantastic.
I've actually been in a yoga class where there was an older lady in the back of the room on a chair. Actually, she couldn't get down to the floor, but she could still sit on the class. She could still participate. So it's great that it's something that you can do at the very beginning, no matter what age you are, and also that you can move through and move up to quite advanced levels if that's what you wish.
For sure. Yeah.
So how frequently would you recommend, like, is this like, I assume it's not a one and done. It is something that you need to do regularly.
Well, I practice every day, but that's because it's a huge part of my life. I do encourage, I work one-to-one with women. So some of them work with me fortnightly, and then I sort of encourage them to have a small, say, 15-minute or 10-minute little sequence that they can do daily or every second day. It depends on what someone's looking for, really. If you're looking for stress release and you really know that your body needs to rest, then a daily 10 minutes of legs up the wall and focusing on your breath, I think it has huge benefits. If you're trying to maintain body strength and build that strength, then you really it would be great if you could do it twice a week. Whether that's a class or not, or you're doing something at home is that depends on your time availability and where you are in life.
I guess, yeah, your symptom picture would definitely also. I was sorry, as you were talking, I was thinking that I've read a research paper looking at doing different stretches, and they did look like yoga stretches. And it was looking at doing 10 to 15 minutes of these stretches prior to bed, having a significant reduction in night sweats, insomnia, anxiety, which wouldn't surprise you at all. But I guess that's something, if you know that you're more prone to poor sleep, then to spend that 10 or 15 minutes every day is going to give you a good return. If you sleep better, then you're going to have a better day the next day, versus if you don't have any symptoms, you're just optimizing your health, maybe working on your bone or muscle strength. There may be more longer sessions a couple of times a week might be more
Exactly.
beneficial.
Yes, and there's also that that thing of we change, and so your symptoms will vary. Well, I found my symptoms definitely varied, and the thing I value from a yoga practice is that you always connecting back to your body. So you start to actually think, oh, my shoulder is sore today. I need to rest it. And so then you can adjust what you're doing rather than, oh, my shoulder's sore, I'm just going to keep going and ignore it because it will get better. Yoga really does encourage you to have an awareness and listen to what your body's telling you. I think that that's hugely important.
I agree. So you mentioned that you have some women that do one-on-ones with you, and it could be fortnightly or whatever the frequency is. How do they do that?
So a couple of ladies work with me face to face, and then other people have worked with me online. So we do Zoom sessions. Normally what I do is talk to them before we start working together, what sort of symptoms they're having, what their concerns are, what they're hoping to gain from doing the work with me. And then I work out a practice for them if that's what they're looking for. One lady who I have been working with for a while, she likes bite-sized things that she can do throughout the day, or if she wakes up at 3 a.m, because for her that's been an ongoing problem. So we've been looking at different little things that help her, and also dealing with other things as have cropped up. So she's just started to get migraines, so we've been looking at ways to help her with that. And then another woman I work with, she wanted a practice. So she wanted me to sort of come up with a 30-minute practice that she could do every week. And then the next week we would do another one. So we would record the session, and then she had access to the recordings and she'd just do them whenever she wanted. And now she's got a little library of classes for herself. And that was great for her because she started off, she had some shoulder issues and neck issues, mainly from her job. She was, at an office desk a lot, so found that she'd really got a lot of tightness in her shoulders and her upper back and neck. And so through the practices, what we've done is helped her to build awareness of this area. So now she actually doesn't round so much when she's working. She tends to sit up a little straighter, but she's built some strength in the front shoulder muscles, around the pectoral muscles. And she doesn't have a lot of problems now with things like downward facing dog, whereas before she couldn't do a dog pose. She had to put her hands up on a chair to do a downward facing dog, which is fine. But she really wanted to be able to go back to doing downward facing dog, hands on the floor. And at the moment, that's where she's at. She's feeling really proud of herself. And she also has more vitality. I think that is the other lovely to see. She's just so happy that she's got more energy. She's feeling lighter and happier in her body.
I think that also comes from having a body that you enjoy being in. If your body's doing things that you want it to be able to do, versus it being limited or restricted, just to be able to create that movement, that freedom, that I guess it's also a bit of self-love. It's like, okay, I'm loving my body again. I'm appreciating, I'm grateful. I think that also plays a role.
I think so too. I think it's, there's nothing, if you've got an exercise that you hate doing, that you're really like, oh, I don't want to go and do it, then it doesn't feel very nice. Whereas if you actually enjoy doing what you're doing, even if it's lying on the floor at home in front of the TV and doing some very simple stretches and really concentrating on the feeling of your arms stretching out and your legs moving and wiggling your toes, and taking 5 minutes to do something like that, it's a bit like when we see the cat get up or the dog get up and they do that big stretch, that pandiculation. and so that helps to release tension in the fascia of the body, in the muscles, and it feels so damn nice. I mean, it's one of the things I encourage everyone to do. I really enjoy it. I think it's a lovely way to start the day. Lie in bed before you get out of bed. Wiggle your toes and flex your fingers around, and let your body dictate how it wants to start to move, and do that for 2 minutes, and then get out of bed and off you go and do whatever, you shower or whatever.
It also gives you that moment to wake up, doesn't it?
It does.
You're not just jumping up and going. It's like, okay, I'm excited about the day. What am I going to be doing? Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a great tip. So we've got legs up the wall before bed, stretching after bed, or just, what did you call it? When
Pandiculation.
Okay. Beautiful. What a nice way. It's like you've book-tailed. You've got your start and finish of each day in a gentler way. When I was looking through your website, I saw a section on pelvic floor. And that is a very important a very important topic for women, especially at this stage of life. How does yoga help with pelvic floor?
Well, firstly, I think it helps again with awareness. So when you start to make that connection with your breath, you start to learn more about the action of breathing. I mean, so many of us breathe in our upper chest rather than, doing some full breaths in. So if that's where you're habitually breathing in this high chest area, yoga is going to help you to learn how to breathe right down and really use your diaphragm so that you can feel that your belly expands outwards, your chest fills up, and then it all comes back up as you exhale. It all draws back in. Doing simple things like that, you start to realize, as if you extend your awareness down to your pelvic floor, that actually as the diaphragm extends down on the inhalation, it impacts the pelvic floor, and then the pelvic floor draws up slightly as the diaphragm draws up on the exhalation. So if you're sitting in a nice upright position, either in a chair or you can even do this standing up, but it's easier if you're sitting down, and let your shoulders relax, open up the front chest, let your hands rest on your lap, and start to take some belly breaths. So breathe down into the belly, feel the belly expand, fill the lungs with the inhalation, and then exhale in a steady stream, and let your awareness drop down to your pelvic floor. With practice, you start to realize that you're toning the pelvic floor, even with your own natural breath. So that's one way. The other thing that I think is important, and I suggest this to any client that wants to work around their pelvic floor, I think it's really important that you know if your pelvic floor is overtoned or undertoned, because I didn't realize for a long time that some women have an overtoned pelvic floor, and they can have a lot of problems as a result.
They just don't relax properly. It's too tight.
Exactly, that's right. And then you can also have on one side of your pelvic floor, it can be too tight, and the other side can be not tight, not relaxed, not toned enough. So I think, first of all, you want to have an awareness. So if you can see a physio that specializes in the pelvic floor area.
Women's pelvic physiotherapist. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you don't need a referral for that. You can get one from your GP, or you can just book an appointment directly.
And I think that that's fantastic that that's available now. I don't remember in my 30s that was available, but maybe in my 30s, I probably wasn't thinking about my pelvic floor very much.
It's interesting when you look at what's happening around the world. In some places, 6 weeks post childbirth, everybody is sent to a pelvic physiotherapist, which I think would be amazing, just to go, okay, look, you've had a lot of stress to the pelvic floor. Let's see how it's coping. Let's see if you need any help. Let's see if you're okay, versus never seeing anyone and then getting to this stage of life and realizing, I might have some issues. I might have some incontinence issues. I might have some prolapse issues. Wouldn't it have been nice if it was caught sooner? I
Oh,
know we're here talking about menopause, but if you've got any younger women in your life that are still having children, 6 weeks post, be a good time to send them off to a pelvic physiotherapist, but it's never too late. You can go now.
yeah, I think that's a fantastic idea, actually. But as you say, it's never too late. You can go whenever. So if you've got that sense of, or if you've been told that you need to build the strength in your pelvic floor, then there's different things we can do in yoga. Again, they can be something like doing a downward facing dog with your heels high. So you could put your heels on a skirting board on the wall, or roll a towel up and try and or use yoga blocks so that you're lifting the pelvis into a deeper tilt. And all really what that's doing is it's drawing the weight away from the base of the pelvic floor. So that can be quite relieving if you used to feeling that heaviness and you're trying to work on your pelvic floor. Then that's a very simple thing you can do. There are lots of other exercises that we can do, but again, it always comes back to awareness. In my classes that I teach, where I have quite a lot of people and they're in a standing pose, I'll often remind them that they want to be lifting up from their pelvic floor. When you've got your legs spread wide apart and you're using your muscles and you're hoping that you can hold it for another couple of seconds, sometimes people will be pushing down. So it's that reminder: lift up, draw up, lift up from the pelvic floor all the way up through to the crown of the head. And it gives you a sense of lightness too, which is more pleasurable, I think, in something like that than to be sort of grinding down.
Yeah. So you mentioned in your group classes. So are the group classes in person or online or both?
At the moment, I'm only doing group classes in person. Next year, I'm going to start doing some online classes that are specific to yoga for menopause, so that because I have clients that live away from where I live and I can't drive everywhere. But at the moment, yes, it's just in-person classes. And then I do workshops as well.
So are the workshops yoga as well, or are they menopause workshops, or what are they?
So what I teach is a yoga for menopause workshop, where we talk about the biochemical changes of menopause, and I encourage women to share any concern that they might have, or their experience, or if something's been an issue for them. We talk about the 4 pillars of health and how you can really support yourself through nutrition and sleep and releasing stress and exercise. And then we do a yoga practice. And so we look at different forms of what you can be doing in yoga. We don't have a lot of time because there's only I'm only doing 3 hours in these workshops at the moment. And I always like to finish with a yoga nidra. And a yoga nidra is a guided meditation. I like to have a half hour so that I can take people through a long, relaxing meditation, so that even if they come away and they're like, oh, well, the yoga, maybe I'm not really into yoga, but they've relaxed. Hopefully they've learned something and they've had a big relaxation. I think that's really important.
And yoga nidra is just such a beautiful meditation, such a good choice.
It is. It's so powerful. It's lovely. It's something that I try and do very frequently, because it helps me to sleep. It helps me to feel grounded. And again, it helps me to address some of the stories that I have around different issues that I don't really need to be listening to. So I can start to shift them through a yoga nidra.
That might be another good 3 a.m. when you woke, if you've woken up and you can't get back to sleep, is to maybe do that meditation. But I noticed on your website that you actually offer, is it a free recording of a yoga nidra so they can try it out?
I do. In fact, there's 4 free classes. So there's one is all about enjoying movement. So it's just a range of movements. The next one is focused more on building strength. And then the third one is pelvic floor. So it's for toning the pelvic floor, and then a yoga nidra. And they're around 30-35 minutes each. They're free. Once you've got the link, you can play them as often as you want to. So yeah, it's a great opportunity for people to try something out if they're interested. They just need to head to my website for that.
You better tell us what your website is so we can head there.
Sorry. It's Justine Thompson yoga.com.au.
I will put that in the show notes. So if you want to find it easily, you can.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Well, so thank you so much for your time today. Was there anything that you wanted to leave the listeners with? Any final comments?
I think that one of the things that I have learned myself, and I think that I have helped other people to realize, is that this is a time of our life when we're not broken, when we can actually adjust perhaps some behaviors in our lives to support ourselves better. And through whatever activity you take on and whatever changes you make, there's a whole other side of menopause, which is really quite exciting. And I think that the more that we can turn to these big changes and embrace them with a little bit of an open heart and an open mind, then we can step out of those fears around aging and the fears of this idea that it's all limiting, and actually realize that there's lots to be enjoyed in post-menopause, menopause and beyond, whatever you want to call it. I think that's really important, actually.
And also that it's a transition. It has an end. That you're not going to be in this place of limbo forever. And that I kind of see it as like an evolution. It's like you're becoming version 2.0, which is a better, nicer, more evolved, wiser form of yourself now. So
yeah, I really like that. That's true. It is an evolution. Yes. Yeah, that's lovely.
It was wonderful to meet you and to speak with you today. Thank you for your time.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. It's been great, actually. It's been really lovely.